Okay, I've received a brand new Atlas Classic Burlington Northern Road 4064. It's an RS3. I'm going to open this up in just a minute and test it. I'm going to do something a little different. Usually I use the MRC decoders, but for this one I'm going to use a Tsunami TSU AT1000 that is basically for the Alco 244. So I'm going to open this thing up and test it just like I do the MRCs, and we're going to see just how much nicer this is. Now, I pay about $52 to $54 for the MRCs, and as you can see, these are a little bit more pricey. I do think they're better, but I'm not sure they're worth another $50, $45, $40. But let's put one together and just see how well it sounds. Okay, I think you can see right here I've soldered on the speaker wires. I'm using an MRC speaker, and what I use for solder is a solder paste. I've shown this a lot of times, but just for some of you who watch one of my videos, this is what I use, is Mechanics solder paste. It comes as 50 milligrams. It lasts a long time. I've done over 50 conversions, and I'm on my second little jar of it. I also make these little clothespins, as you can see. They've got a wire going through them that attaches on to the pickup leads, and then they're hooked on, as you can see, to these wire ends. This being the second one that needs to be hooked up. And what's in here is a 27 ohm resistor, and I use the MRC Tech 6 sound controller 2.0. So we're going to hook up the second wire. Okay, let's hook this up. That's a long horn, usually 3 is a short horn. That should have been the dynamic brake, but it doesn't seem to work. There it goes. And 4 turns it off. Throttle up. I'm not sure I'm really hearing the turbo on it, but we'll throttle it back down. They actually idle rougher than this. They actually sound like they're dying, and then they catch back up again. But I think it sounds pretty cool. 8 just silences it. On the MRC decoders, it would actually shut the engine down. So we'll just silence it. So the decoder's fine. So now we'll test the locomotive. Okay, I've got it in forward. You'll notice the lights come on. Actually, I got it in reverse. So I'll put it in forward. Sorry about that. The lights come on, and they're directional in DC. As you can see, it's quiet. And I'll show you, as I put it in reverse, you'll see the lights come on. But you'll notice they're not on in the front, and I'll show you how they do that. So what we've done here now, I've tested the locomotive. I know it's fine. Even though it's new, I noticed it had a little bit of dust on it, so I'm pretty sure the hobby shop had this out on display. So I'll clean it up a little bit. But I do pull the gears and the wheels out because they have the little clips holding the wires, and I like to solder them. So I'm going to take this apart and we'll get started. To take the shell off, you got to pull the couplers off. And then, different than the RS1, the deck comes off with the rails. And I've removed the cab because 2 reasons. One is I'm going to install a conductor and an engineer, and 2, I've got to cut a hole right here for a 0.62 QSI speaker because there is no room inside of here. So this has the small flywheels, so this will work out very good for the MRC, but we're going to put in the Tsunami by Soundtraxx. Now, just for a second here, you can see this is a 12-volt system, and it's got like a, I think it's like a 240 diode, which probably means these are 6-volt bulbs. Now, the reason this thing can do directional lighting is because of these diodes right here. You can see the white line. So what these do is they only allow current to flow one way. So when the currents, let's say this is the right track, it's going to allow the current to flow through. I should make this track, when it's the positive, it'll allow the current to flow through, lining up the front end. When you put it in reverse, this track becomes the positive. It goes through this other diode and allows the current to flow. They're like a check valve. They only allow current to flow one way, and that's how you get directional lighting. Anyway, I'm going to take this board off and start to install the new board. Okay, a couple things real quick. As you can see, the worm gear, this one's clean, but this one, that's a sticky grease they put on these things. So even though it's new, I'm going to have to do this. So I've taken the trucks apart. This one's still pretty much intact. But the problem is, and I'll show you this too, this is how these things come out with this clip on. And what I've done is, you can see I've soldered that so I don't have to worry about them coming loose once it's all put together. But these things are, even though they're new, they're just not really working. So I'm going to take them completely apart, wash them, then use some Labelle oil and just a touch of graphite. And that should fix that. Then I'll have those soaking for a while I do some other work on this thing, then start putting it back together. Another thing I do, just real quickly, is before I put the decoder on, I put this Kapton tape. I really like this stuff. It's a dielectric, it's heat resistant, so it protects when the board's on here. If there's any terminals or anything that could possibly touch the metal part of the motor, it's insulated. So it's just a good idea. It just solves problems later on. Okay, they're back together, and we'll see how clumsy they knock them off the track here. A little bit easier to roll. So even though they're new, just hardly touch them and they're off and running. So after cutting a hole in the top of the shell, this is a 0.62 QSI speaker, and as you can see, I'm using RC Z56, I think it is. Super RC Z56. This really never gets hard. It's very easy to take back off with a debonder, because that holds the speaker in place. You can see I've got the wires hooked up to it. So this will cure probably until tomorrow. Now, if I were using a MRC decoder, I wouldn't have to do this, but with this decoder, to make room for a speaker, I've cut the weight as you can see. And to cut the weight, I use my handy dandy X-Acto saw. This metal is really soft, easy to work with. Then I use the Dremel to clean it up just a little bit. Cut the screws off by running them through and then cutting them off using the Dremel and a cutter bit. That one right there. And then I file them really good before I back them out. As you back them out, that kind of fixes the threads and they went back in very simply. This is what happens when you're not paying attention. I cut off the wrong end, but it goes back in place really nice. So who cares? Anyway, so that's what it takes. Now it's time to put the board in. The problem you can run into, there's no space on here to hide this capacitor. It's a 25 volt 200 UF, but it's an 8mm. So with the MRC decoders, I've had to do the same thing. So this is the same size, 25 volt 200 UF, and I'm going to have to remove the 8mm and install this one so I can hide this thing underneath here, right in there. The 8mm won't fit. So that's no big thing. Just make sure you're watching the polarity. There is a negative, and it's very easy to see because it's this gray stripe. As you can see, that's the negative. And as you can see here, that's the black wire. So make sure you get them hooked up right, or you'll blow the capacitor. I use this soldering paste. I've shown this several times. What I like about it is you can just put a dab of this stuff on the wire and on the receptacle, and it works out really well. So it's mechanic soldering paste. It comes with 50 milligrams. That lasts a long time. I also use these wooden clothespins, and as you can see, I've been able to cut the wire really short. And this clothespin will basically work as a heat sink to make sure the heat doesn't get into the capacitor and damage it. So as you can see, the red wire is on the positive and the black wire is on the negative. I've got the heat shrink where all I got to do now is pull it up and slip it over the wire, and I'll shrink it with the soldering iron real quickly, and then I'm done with these and I can tuck these away. Okay, I think as you can see by the red light on the decoder, I've got it all wired. I've got the motor leads just loosely connected, but I've got the other leads, as you can see, soldered in. I haven't put the lights on yet, but I will in a minute. So it's in forward, so it should go to the right, and it does. Put it in reverse, and it's still very quiet. As I run over stuff I have piled up on my work table here. Too much stuff, obviously. Okay. You can see the red light now. If you have a locomotive that red light would show through, you may want to paint it black or put black electrician's tape over it so it doesn't look like your motor's on fire. So we'll take it off, hook up the lights, test it one more time before we put it all together, and again, the speaker has to cure until tomorrow, so I'm not going to put it together today, but we're getting there. Okay, so the speaker's in. I found me a conductor and an engineer and installed them with super glue. I've painted the white part of the speaker enclosure with black, so it'll be really hard to see, and it's basically almost flush with the top, so you're not even going to see it when it's put together. The locomotive itself, you can see I had to cut pieces of the weights off. On the forward end, I had to cut it so I could move the board forward enough to get the speaker to fit in back here. Then on the back end, I had to cut that piece out for the speaker to fit down inside of there. You can see the capacitor, which is smaller. That's a 6.5mm versus the 8mm, and it fits in there very nicely. And it's bonded in with the RZZ56. So if you need to remove it, it's nothing more than, and you can see it's not cured yet. When it's totally cured, it'll be clear. But if you need to remove it, you just use a debonder. It'll come out really well. The wiring is basically in place. The shell should go on pretty easily. I'll plug the speaker in first. Make sure those wires are going to lay down where they belong. And we'll see how it looks all put together. Okay, so here's the finished product. See the conductor. I really like these things. I do. And you can see all the way through. So the speaker is down out of the way. So let's put the couplers on and stick it on the track. Okay, sometimes these Atlas come with McHenry couplers, and sometimes they come with these little cheesy things. So what I do is I'll install the Magnamatic 158s, which are the scales, like this guy right here. Well, I learned a little trick from Flyman JG, and he puts a little bit of graphite in the coupler box, and that just kind of keeps them working really smooth, well, probably forever. So that's the brand I use, but I think any kind of work. Just a powder, but it does help these things move around. As you can see, this one's already installed, and they're quite free. So I'll install this one, put it on the track, and we'll start it up. Listen. Okay, let's fire this baby up. See how it sounds. I'm thinking it sounds pretty good. Hear the bell, horn. That's the long horn. This is Soundtraxx Tsunami. The short horn. It's in reverse. Let's put it forward. Turn on the headlights. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'm not sure yet. They're still worth $40 more than a MRC, but I have to tell you, I'm impressed. So now, I don't know if it's a decoder or what, but the backup light stays on and it stays dim. You can make it brighter. It really has that lope sound that's inherent with these things. And I gotta tell you, I think this thing sounds so much better than the MRC. So much better. Kind of a pain to install, but that's probably enough watching this guy. We'll run it back one more time just for the heck of it. And I'm using the MRC Tech 6 2.0 instead of using my MRC because I like to run the DCs and the DCCs on this thing, so it allows me to do that. So that's good enough. So I hope you're impressed. I certainly am. Like I said, it's kind of a pain to install it, but wow, what a genuine sound. So, probably place this on eBay. It's going to cost more than the ones with the MRC, obviously, because it costs more to build it. It's kind of fun to do, and I think it's looking pretty good. So thanks for watching.